Hi everyone, and welcome to this second education session of the day with the amazingly wonderful Elena Urioste, violinist. Elena gave us an incredible workshop this morning all about movement and posture and breathing, and it was really, really incredible. So if anyone missed it, you can still catch that on the YouTube channel. We're delighted that Elena is going to give two young students from the World Heartbeat Music Academy in Vauxhall a short masterclass of half an hour each today. The first student is going to be Olivia Eade. Olivia is 14. Her teacher is Lassie Ola. She goes to Burnwood School and she's going to perform Vivaldi's Trinity for Elena. So just before I pass over, anyone watching at the very end, we're going to do a short Q&A with Elena. So if you've got any questions, just pop them into the YouTube chat and we'll put them to Elena at the end. So I'll pass you over now to Olivia and to Elena.
Hi, Olivia.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
What are you going to be playing for us?
Allemande.
Great. I will mute myself and you go ahead whenever you're ready. Do you want to play it through and then afterwards we'll chat about it?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, great. I just realized you couldn't hear me clapping. Beautiful. Great. So much good stuff to work with. I actually don't have a huge amount to say. I have a couple of ideas that we can work on, something for each hand. And actually, I don't know whether you were at the session this morning, but I talked a lot about breathing and how, it's important for humans to breathe. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. But the cool thing about breathing, especially as a string player, is that we have like our automatic factory settings, right? Our autopilot of breathing that just keeps our lungs going no matter what we're doing. Like we can trust them, rely on them to keep us alive. But then we also, just as human beings, as mammals, we have the option of breathing consciously and choosing how we breathe and how quickly and how deeply. And that is actually a really, really handy tool that we can use in our music making, both to make us feel more comfortable, to impact the sound, and especially when you're playing with other people. I can't see your pianist, but I hear your pianist, so, oh, there you are, hi, beautiful. Breathing is something that can be really, really helpful in showing others how and when and what you're going to play. So even your very, very first upbeat, I think it was, I don't know this piece very well, so you'll have to excuse me, and I'll try not to demonstrate too much because I don't know what the notes are. But when you're going to start a piece, at the very, very least, a breath is so helpful to settle your own nerves, show the audience what it is that you're about to do. Like, for example, if I were to breathe, that would be a very different character than you know, and it affects my sound. If I'm taking a nice slow inhale into a slow exhale, that will mean my bow will want to sort of like follow my breath in a way. But if it's a quick, sharper inhale and exhale, it might be the same in the sound. Does that all make sense so far?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's try it again and have you really, really breathe and exaggerate it so that it seems almost like ridiculous at first. So that you can, and actually, if it's possible, can I have an angle of both of them together so that we can see? Amazing. This is so cool. You've got such a fancy setup there. Yeah, so start again and really breathe and really allow your colleague to join you on the journey of this piece.
Okay.
Good. So now I remember how the piece goes. So, so you have a few notes before the piano joins you. So I was wrong. You don't technically need to, you're not starting exactly at the same time, but your audience still needs to know what's happening. So I kind of feel as an audience member, I'm watching you play and it sounds good, but I'm sort of like, oh, she started. I'm somehow taken by surprise. Whereas if you set yourself up, really plant yourself, take a few deep breaths, and almost cue yourself as though you're your own conductor, or whatever the notes are. Does that make sense? Like, as a listener, I'm kind of like with you already, rather than having to catch up. Like, oh, okay, this is what she's doing. Those are the notes. This is the character. This is the vibe. So really, like, give yourself time. Sorry if I'm playing the wrong thing.
It's okay.
Good. Sorry, I can't. It seems like you can hear me fine. I hate, yeah, that's like the one weird, I mean, there's a lot of weird things about teaching over Zoom, but like sometimes I'm like having to go like this because you can't see or hear me, but you guys are very responsive. Good. So breathing is not just for the beginning of a piece, of course. It's a really helpful thing to keep doing. Especially I have found as a performer in between phrases, even more extremely if there's a rest in between phrases. So I don't know how this is written out. So I don't know exactly where, the phrases are or whether there's rests. But anytime you feel like, if you were to imagine this music as a paragraph in a book, right? There would be sentences and the sentences would have periods at the end or commas in the middle or semicolons or dashes or, whatever, exclamation points. And reading that, you would sort of pause, with your eyes, or if you were reading it out loud with your voice, you would pause accordingly. So we're allowed to do that as musicians. We're allowed to take a little breath. We don't feel like you have to keep the bow moving at the same pace the whole time. You've got more space than you need to. So we'll work a little bit more on that. And then actually, speaking of the bow, I wondered sometimes if where you're playing actually is not always the easiest place to be playing. Do you ever feel does your arm ever get tired, or do you feel like it's a lot of effort?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
So, here, I'll try really hard not to drop my bow or my violin. So sometimes I like to experiment with, try and back up. If you were to find the balancing point, or the point of the bow that most wants to bounce or play most easily, it wouldn't be in the middle. It would actually be somewhere around here, which is kind of a third of the way from the frog. It's actually much lower than we might think it is. And I have found that if I'm playing, you know, faster notes like this, I don't know what the notes are, so I'm just going to mix them up. Something like that, rather than, sorry if my sound is all weird, rather than, that requires a lot more of my arm and a lot more effort, and it makes me hot and it makes me tired, and I'm a really lazy person and I want to work as little as I possibly can. So I have found that actually moving a little bit further down in the bow can just make the whole thing like a little bit easier. Do you just want to pick a passage without piano and just try it? See what happens when you play it a little bit closer to the frog, maybe even at the middle point or even lower.
Okay.
Good. Let's just do that again. Let's slow it down a little bit. So do 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 do, and play. Think a little heavier. So actually, at the beginning, it might not sound so nice or like sparkly under the ears. Like, let me hear the friction of the bow a little bit. Just try for now, and then we'll make it prettier later. Don't worry. So a little further down, even still in the bow, really nice and sticky, nice and heavy. Let your arm feel like it's kind of like you know when a candle melts and it just feels like it looks nice and heavy and oozy. Maybe that's disgusting. Maybe that's a disgusting image. But think of your arm just being nice and relaxed and heavy, and just allow that weight to support your sound.
Okay.
So just that same thing again, a little slower. How does that feel? Does it feel weird?
A little bit.
A little weird. Can you try it even slower for now? Like da 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 da, just so that you really start to become aware of where exactly your bow is and what string it's on. Yeah. See how clear that was?
Yeah.
Like there was none of the kind of in between any of the notes. Okay, try that again, like one notch on the metronome faster, but just as gluey, just as concentrated as you just did. I like that a lot. And it's just the difference of a couple inches down the bow. But did you also, and you're always allowed to answer no, by the way. Did it feel like, how did it feel in your arm? Like in your right arm?
I didn't really feel like I was using much like energy.
Is that a good thing?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a good thing, but just wanted to check that you thought it was a good thing too. Yeah, I mean, playing the violin is hard enough. You know, there's so many things we have to keep track of, the bow and the vibrato and playing in tune. Oh my gosh, it's just so much. So anywhere I can make it easier for myself, I like to make it easier. So if that means just like, you know, scooching down the bow a couple of inches, it's a pretty simple and somewhat straightforward fix, rather than like having to use, because the further down the bow you go, closer to the tip, you can't just use like the little finger muscles. You have to start using, you know, the forearm and the upper arm, and sometimes the shoulder gets involved, and it's It's just more arm than we need to be dealing with. So wherever you can, I would say. I had a teacher who would always talk about using the smallest possible muscle groups. Wherever possible, thinking about like these tiny little joints of the fingers, and then if need be, the wrist, and then maybe thinking of things up to the elbow. And of course, you're using your shoulder, you're using your back muscles, but not actively. They're just sort of reacting to what's happening down here. Okay, so that's the second idea. So we've got breathing, moving the bow a little bit further down. And then the other thing I wanted to chat with you about was the way you hold and the relationship of your thumb, your left thumb, to the violin. Do you ever feel like tension or like you're squeezing the fingerboard at all?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, does your hand get tired? Like, tell me about that. Tell me about your experience with that.
Well, sometimes my hand hurts, like, because obviously I'm squeezing it more and things.
Can you show me where in your hand it hurts? Is there a specific?
Like here, just here.
That kind of like the squishy bit here?
Yeah.
In between? Yeah, I identify with that a lot. I hold my violin a little bit differently than you do. I tend to, I was never really taught like where to put my thumb. so sometimes I see people and it just, the violin seems to rest so comfortably like in that little crook, but I just kind of like, my thumb always seems to be in motion. But now I quite enjoy that actually, because it means that I'm not relying on my thumb to like pick the violin up. It's just sort of there and I can move it around as I please. So I wonder, I can't like change your setup over Zoom, nor would I want to, but I wonder if we can practice a little bit, like releasing the thumb wherever possible. So for example, because I still don't know the notes of your piece, I'll just show you what I do sometimes when I'm playing scales, and I'm going to turn this way just so that you can see. So sometimes when I'm playing a slow passage, or even just a couple notes, I'll just see what happens when I like take my thumb away from the violin. And just to get used to the fact, or get used to the idea that I don't need my thumb. I don't need my thumb like gripping. Not that you're doing that, but I do that sometimes. So it's partially a physical thing, like learning to release those muscles. But I think it's also a mental thing. Like sometimes I just get convinced that like, if I don't do this specific thing, I'm going to drop my violin. Or like, I'm going to drop my bow if I don't hold it really tight. And it's just not true. Like, I have never gone on stage and actually dropped my violin as much as I think I might do it. So it's just sort of like starting to build that trust in ourselves that we know how to hold our instrument and it's not going anywhere. So can you take any passage of what you've played, or if you don't want to do that, you can just play like a G major scale or any scale and spend as much time as you need on every note. Give yourself time to just see what it's like to take the thumb away. Can you try a little bit of that?
Yeah.
Good. Can we go like crazy slow? Just because I don't want you to, I'm worried that this tempo is maybe a little bit like on autopilot for you. It's like the tempo you've practiced really well and it's the tempo you know and you can do it very confidently. But part of the something like starting to experiment with letting go of the thumb, it's a bit of like rewiring of the brain. So let's just challenge the brain in a few ways. So can you go like, or whatever the notes are, like crazy slow, doesn't even have to be in a tempo. You're just starting to explore all of these notes, and your relationship between the instrument and the hand.
Okay.
Good. And I'm gonna give you one more thing to think about. That's great. So keep the left hand nice and loose. And now see if you can avoid, I feel like the opposite to squeezing the thumb would be like sticking it out very much. That's a kind of, in some ways, another form of tensing it up. Can it just be nice and neutral? Just like go like this with your hand without just like you're not around the fingerboard, just like this in the air. Just away from the violin, just like how I'm doing. Yeah, exactly. And just see how your thumb is kind of naturally like this almost. Turn it over, go like this, like flop it out, floppy, 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 and then pick it back up again. See how it's kind of, just neutral. It's not clenched this way, but it's not outstretched like that.
Yeah.
See if you can just have it a bit more like that when you're playing. So that's one thing. And then this is a perfect opportunity while we're playing slow to practice slowly a bit lower down in the bow. So we get good at what we practice, right? Like if we practice in the tip, if we practice fast, if we practice playing in tune, we're going to get better at those things. So right now you're really good at playing at the tip. Even though it's not necessarily where you want to be, but you've gotten very good at being used to it in a way. So start to practice being in a more kind of easy, desirable place in the bow while you're doing this other thing. And if it seems too overwhelming, like, oh my gosh, this is too many ideas at once, just slow it down even more. I love slow practicing.
Okay.
Good. So you know what I noticed from that is it's already much more in tune. And I think there's a definite correlation or relationship between being relaxed and playing in tune. So from like a mechanical perspective, we've got this box of wood, right? And sound, we know, is all just vibrations. And string instruments especially, we're drawing our bow across the string and the string is, going like this. So the vibrations are traveling. If we're squeezing really tight, anything, like our necks down, our thumbs down, we're kind of like dampening the vibrations of the instrument and of the strings. So if you've got your thumb, squeezing down, the whole instrument is going to be like, oh my gosh, let me go. It feels a little bit like we're choking it. And so the looser, the more kind of hands off. Of course, we're not going to have our hands off, but I can't think of another word for it. Just like a little bit removed, not emotionally, but physically, the more removed we can be from interfering in this process, the more the instrument is going to ring and the more relaxed our hands will be. So we'll find the note more. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Try one more time just so that you can really get this feeling in your hands. You can go even slower. Keep encouraging yourself to find that really comfy point in the bow where it just sort of like makes the resonant sound all by itself as I burp. And yeah, let's try it one more time. Good. So how does that feel in both hands now?
Yeah, it feels much better.
Much better. Any kind of pain in the squishy bit here?
No.
Yay! I really like to imagine when I'm thinking about holding my violin like this, that I've got something like nice and soft and furry in my hands. Like I'm holding a really cute hamster or something like really sweet. Or sometimes I like to envision an apple, like if I need a little bit more power, but just something nice and round and yeah, soft that I want to like treat carefully. Because it like we should be treating these carefully anyway. There's no reason to smush our friends here. I think we're about to start wrapping up. So did you have any specific questions for me? Anything you wanted to work on specifically in the piece?
No, not about the piece. I didn't have any questions.
Or anything about violin in general or performing?
I have some questions for you.
Great. Ask away.
So how old were you when you started the violin?
I was 5 years old. And I started, I knew I wanted to play since I was 2 because I saw it on TV on Sesame Street. And I kept asking my parents and they kept saying no because they thought that was quite strange behavior for a 2-year-old. But I started when I was 5 years old.
Okay. Do you play any other instruments or is it just the violin?
It's just the violin. I had to take piano when I was in college and it was such a disaster. I think my teacher passed me just so she wouldn't have to see me anymore. But I mean, I'm so jealous of people who can play many things. My husband is primarily a pianist, but growing up, he played the cello and the oboe. So he can basically play everything. And it's really cool. And it's also annoying because it just makes me feel like I can only do this one thing.
What genres do you play on the violin?
Genres. I mean, I'm classically trained. Sometimes I like to pretend that I can, be cool and play things that are slightly jazzier or like Latin or, tiptoeing into bluegrass, but it's all very like rooted in classical, and I'm afraid I'm not cool at all. And I can't improvise. I mean, I can't improvise in public. Definitely not.
Yeah, that's all my questions.
Oh, they're good questions. Well, thank you so much for playing, and it sounds great. And I would just encourage you to like make life as easy for yourself on the violin as possible. So like nice and relaxed. Find the part of the bow where you have to work the least hard and keep breathing, because honestly, that at the end of the day, that just makes everything much more comfortable.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bravo.
Well done, Olivia. That sounded really great. And thanks, Elena. Even I was learning loads of little tips there for when I pick up my violin, which has been over 20 years. I did like 1 year, just to tell you, Elena, I confess.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, one very brief year. But yeah, we won't talk about that. So the next student is going to be Inaya, and she is 15. She also studies with Lassie Ola. She goes to Fulham Cross Girls' School, so big shout out to them. She has been playing the violin since she was 9 at the World Heartbeat Academy, and she is going to play Liebeslied by Chrysler. So enjoy.
Hi.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
That was great. This is such a great piece, and it's so Chrysler, I think. It's just, yeah, it's like the perfect little piece. Yeah, things sounded really great. I would love to focus from a musical perspective, on the rhythm. That was the thing I think that jumped out at me the most. Chrysler, in his own playing, is, of course, I don't know whether you've heard recordings of him. If you haven't, you definitely should. He's, on Spotify and YouTube and stuff. he's maybe my favorite violinist ever to have lived. His sound is so warm and personal, and you just sort of get the impression that you're, listening to him play while a fireplace crackles, and it all just feels very cozy. And he was extremely flexible in his own playing, like with rhythm. His intonation was a little, flexible would be a polite word for it. But there was a real sense of like inner pulse and inner integrity. And sometimes I felt like the pulse got a little wobbly. And in some regards, I would say this piece is a waltz. Like we should be able to hear the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And it can sway to and fro. But there were sections where I felt a little bit like I felt like I was blowing in the wind a little too much for what was going on in the piano, stuff like that. So let's go from the beginning again. Just play a couple phrases again, and maybe just keep one ear out, or like one section of your brain focused on the rhythm. And I don't mean, it has to be like a military march, like very strict and no fun at all. But just feeling that like if you were asked to dance to this in the way that you might have in, Chrysler's time, could the dance make sense? Could you feel like you were waltzing without like falling over? Sorry. Good. Great. Already better. I, again, don't have the music here because all of my violin music is stuck in Philadelphia, which is where I live when there isn't a pandemic also. I seem to remember there being some rests in here in this music. And I feel a bit like your bow is like very insistently glued to the string. And I wonder if we can play with like picking it up and having a little bit more lightness. Here, I'll see if this. Even something like that. Here, it feels a little bit, which ends up giving the impression that it's all quite this. But I think this piece is this perfect mixture of like sad, but also with the smile. You're kind of like smiling through the tears, like trying to be okay. And I think if the bow is too much glued to the string, it all starts to sound like a little bit like this. So can you try just experimenting more with the bow? Like, don't be afraid to lift it off. Make different types of sounds with the dotted notes, things like that. So try the same phrase again. Good. That was already real. That was much better. I liked it a lot. And I don't want to go against anything your teacher has said, but sometimes to me the up bows and down bows that you've decided on are making your life harder than it needs to be. Like I think rather than down up, down, up. So you might just try fooling around with which direction you're going. I had a teacher once who would always suggest playing things with separate, like start at the beginning of your piece, play with separate bows, start down bow and just go back and forth, and then try it again, start up bow and go back and forth, and just see what you find out. Of course, he gave me this advice for Bach, which is like quite a different animal, I would say, but I think it can apply to different styles of music and different eras of music also. You might find that it's much easier for your hand to go down, up, rather than up, down. Who knows? It might not be easier, but only you can know that, really. Let's go on and keep that really nice sense of pulse. And again, it's not something that has to be like dot, 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 but it's sort of like a wheel. And if it speeds up or slow down, it's okay as long as the wheel keeps turning. Something like that. So go from where you left off and go for another couple phrases. Good, let's stop there. So this sort of second subject, I think it's a much different character, or it's like a bunch of new characters that are introduced all of a sudden. So, you had this 2 times that, but now we're getting much sort of more opening, like the sun is maybe coming out. No, it's not, just kidding. But it's okay. Nope, it's fine. So I think you can be much more kind of extreme in all of these characters. It means love, sorrow, but it is still love, and there's moments where, and it doesn't have to be romantic love, it can be parent love or sibling love. There are moments where you just, you want to hug this person and say, I love you, yay! And there are times where you're like, ugh, you're really bumming me out. I still love you, but like, feel kind of sad. There's like this huge range of things that you can feel within love. And I think we can use our bow, our left hand, our choice of fingerings, our choice of bowings to express that. And then there was one like technical thing that I wanted to... Oh, the rhythm. Here's where it got weird for me. When you go... And I can't remember exactly how it's marked, but that was a place for me that got a little too wobbly. So make sure the short notes are short enough. I think that was what the issue was, but now I can't quite remember. So go from there. Great. So much better. I loved a lot of that. Yeah, it's just the rhythm that's weird, I think. When you make sure so that you're I don't know how to do this just with myself, but that those are on the beat. If that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? You could do it once or twice slowly with the pianist when you're rehearsing, just so that you're able to. I feel him kind of being quite responsive and wonderful and flexible with you, but you might someday play with someone who's not that nice or sensitive, and you just want to make sure that you're making everyone's job easier. But that was great in terms of the character. I love how it opened up in these and closed back down. That's so nice. And I think you can't do too much of that in music like this. I mean, it's all about, it's like a little mini opera drama type thing that lasts 3 minutes long. And we want to feel all the emotions in the span of, these couple minutes. Go on from there, I guess. Now it's, but think about how are you going to make this different? Otherwise, this piece, for all its wonderfulness, it can get a little bit repetitive. We hear the same thing a whole bunch of times. So now maybe as you come back to the original theme, think about what you want to bring to it. You've had one happy outburst. Does that inform how you come back to this theme? Is it something totally new? Are you more inward? Are you more extroverted? And again, I don't really think there's a right or wrong answer. It's Chrysler wrote such personal music and he wanted it to be personal for everyone. So I think these decisions are entirely yours. Just however you do it, make sure that we know how you're feeling about it. Good. Sorry, I completely forgot about this section. Oops, my bad. So this, I would say, it's maybe not so open to interpretation. It's this, we've gone from a minor key to a major key. So I think probably pretty definitively we're meant to think that this is quite a happy bit. So definitely reflect that in your sound. If I were to offer my personal opinion, which you can take or leave, an open E is not like the happiest sound in the world or like not the most warm, beautiful. So I might play around with being on the A string. What? I mean, in general, but that's just me. I don't really like using open strings, but that's, my personal thing. Do with that what you will. This is another place where I notice the rhythm. So even though we're very happy, we're very extroverted here, we still can't let I think when I feel that your rhythm goes a little funny, it's that the smaller notes are too long and they come too soon. So to exaggerate what I mean, it's something like, so I don't feel the lilt of it, and actually the whole thing rushes a little bit. So what we want to do is delay the smaller notes and have them really be on the shorter side. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You can hear, I mean, you're obviously very smart, so I think you can probably hear the difference. So, resist the urge, because I know we get excited about what's coming next. Resist the urge to go forward. Like, even in your happy, expansive joy, we still want to, it's still Chrysler. He's still a gentleman with his mustache, and, he's very patient, and he waits, and, everything unfolds properly. So once more from the A major, and I'm very sorry that I forgot about that whole section before.
Oh, can I do it on the...
Good. Sorry. So, don't worry about the fingering for now. That obviously takes, you experiment with that at home. I want to try something because I think you have gotten used to your very, 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 very nice pianist. I'm going to ask that our friend on the piano be uncompromising in his rhythm and not follow you when you go ahead. And I want you to see where you both end up, just as an experiment. Uh-oh. So, thank you for doing that. See, look how it was so hard for him to do that because he's so sensitive and he's always with you. But yeah, it does go ahead quite a bit. So sometimes something that I like to do in my music, if I've got a bunch of tied notes, I actually just mark the beat so that I remember to really listen for, those downbeats or whatever beats they're on. And that's something that the two of you can work out in a rehearsal. But I'm not saying it has to be one tempo or painfully slow or anything like that. It's just, you want to feel part of what makes this section, this figure, this whole music great is to feel this sort of inevitable wheel turning again while you have these cross rhythms. So it's almost a hemiola. It is a hemiola. But if we kind of give it away by going, then we don't get the beauty of those two, the da bum 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 and the da 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 da. So we want to feel that pull of the 2 against 3, if that makes sense. So that's something definitely to keep an ear out for when you're rehearsing and stuff. Let's do this one more time, this A major section. I just want to hear how you go back into the minor again. That's like a terribly sad transition. Good. Yeah, so I would say your homework for this piece is really maybe just rethinking the rhythm and how you can, again, like it looks quite simple on paper, right? Like there's a lot of crotchets and tied and, it looks fairly straightforward. But actually there are some really interesting things going on. As I said, those cross rhythms, the hemiolas, just finding the sort of interplay between your line and the piano's line. And I think that feeling that strong rhythmic integrity can really make the piece sparkle, like I think Chrysler would want it to. And then your other piece of homework, I think, is figuring out ways to make even greater difference in your sound, in your vibrato, in your fingerings between all these different characters. When it's major, I think it can be like all the sunshine comes in. When it's sad, it can be really intimate and inward and, you're like starting to cry, but you don't want anyone to see, that sort of thing. Like, and you can invent your own stories and own characters for it. But I think everything can be even more obvious because, us as listeners, we're not always so perceptive. Like as performers, we plan out all of these things in our head. And then, the audience gets like maybe a tiny percentage of it. And then we're like, ugh, but I worked so hard on this. So oftentimes it just means that we as performers have to exaggerate so much. It's like putting on stage makeup. And from a distance, it looks totally normal. When you get up close, you see like people look ridiculous, like clowns. But that's what it takes for a face to look like a face from far away. And it's the same with our playing, I think. So yeah, those are your two things to think about.
Thank you.
And then bravo. And I wanted to ask the same if you have any questions about this piece, about anything at all.
Yeah, I also have some questions to you. What's the best venue that you've played at for you?
The best venue?
Yeah.
Well, I've got lots of different favorite venues for different reasons, but I love Carnegie Hall, I have to say. The big hall at Carnegie Hall is very special and just so big also. And like thinking about all the people who have played there is like, so that's quite cool. In London, where I am now, I love the Wigmore Hall. I just think it's one of the most perfect, like the sound in there is just so yummy. But then I've also had like really cool experiences playing in bars and in schools and outside in parks. So I think it depends, just on sort of the atmosphere of the evening. So it doesn't just have to be concert halls that are nice to play in.
And also, what genre of music do you like playing on the violin?
What genre of music? I am limited to, the classical genre. But within that, I would say I really like playing, I think I'm most at home in like late romantic. So composers like Korngold and Elgar and who else? Amy Beach. I've been loving playing Amy Beach recently. And even beyond that, like early Schoenberg pieces that are kind of like on the brink of stretching tonality a little bit, but that have like a real romantic soul. I would say that's my favorite kind of zone to be in. Cool. Anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Well, you played beautifully, and I'm just so grateful to everyone who helped organize this. It's so nice to, like, you both sounded so nice. It's so nice to hear, like,
Thank
you know,
you.
things with the proper microphone and the setup, and it was just such a pleasure to get to hear you both.
Thank you.
Yeah, well done, Inea, and again, thank you so much, Elena. I think the Q&A sort of took care of itself naturally there.
Yeah, but if anyone else has any, yeah, sorry, I kind of like improved on that, but if anyone else has any questions, I'd love to answer them.
Yeah, well, I'll pass over to Sahana. I think you want to say a quick thank you on behalf of the Academy to Elena.
Elena, it's just been such a privilege having you with us, like literally with us tonight. And particularly, it's really great for World Heartbeat to be part of Classical Vauxhall. We're just about to move into the regeneration area of Nine Elms, and with a brand new concert hall. And I believe it's like one of the first concert halls to be built since 2008 in London. It's a little community concert hall, but we're really excited to be part of this area, and also to have you, Elena, working with these girls. Thank you so much. And thank you to Michael, Shani Wills. Thank you to our technical team as well, Nick Cohen and Io Vincent. Thank you a lot.
Thank you. It was honestly such a pleasure. Such a nice way to spend an evening.
We're so looking forward to having you either here in Kimber Road, in our home here, or in our new concert hall when it gets built.
I would love
An education centre as well. It's going to be an education centre up in Vauxhall.
And in the meantime, don't forget, guys, you can see Elena and Tom Poster in concert on Friday at 7 p.m. here on the Vauxhall London YouTube channel. So Elena starts actually with Amy Beach, the wonderful composer she just mentioned. So tune in for that, and you'll get to see all the different genres of music that Elena and Tom play. And thank you guys both so much again, and see you soon.
Thank you.
Well done, guys. Bye-bye.